Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're doing well today. MLB 20 has finally dropped, and we are back with some more tips videos. Today, we're starting off with a Showdown video. There's a lot to do in this game, as you can see on the screen right here. Showdown is the big new mode. They've integrated it really well into the missions and the grinding part of the game. But there's a lot of little small things that you might not know about Showdown, or maybe tips that you need to complete the Showdowns, or like trying to figure out how much time you're trying to put into this mode. Well, all your questions will be answered in this video, so make sure to check it out. I've been playing it pretty much all day, launch day, a little bit of events as well, but this is what I really focused my time into. And when I started off, it was not easy, but as we got throughout the day, by the end of it, we were actually skipping all the way to the end of Showdowns and just doing them right away. And there are some tricks to get to that point. Just being a good player doesn't mean you can automatically do that, but at the same time, maybe you can. So let's talk about all the different parts of this mode. So first of all, this is the Showdown screen when you enter it. As you can see, I'm working on the AL Central and AL West right now. I kind of started with the AL Central because I know I want to do the White Sox one, but at the same time, I know I'm going to do the March to October. You can't really sit on program stars for a while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do March to October, leave the AL Central alone for now. I've done the AL West and I've done the NL West a couple times because I'm trying to go for that Tatis. And by the way, I have a video coming out either later today or tomorrow, sometime this weekend. And it's going to go into every card that you should be looking to take from now until Silver 1. And it's going to have different paths. So if you're good at Team Affinity, if you're good at these Showdowns after this video, then you're going to have a lot of options. But if you don't want to do that, you're going to have some limited options because I think there's only a few cards in the game right now that are actually really usable. So I have a video on that as well. But if you can do these Showdowns, it really helps in that regard. So that's why I'm trying to get this video out to you before that one, because this one is really important to try to grind out your team. So of course the starter one, it's pretty simple. There's only a few missions here. It's a really good way to see how the progression works and how the drafting works. And the kind of the Showdowns especially, these are the big ones right here. Because we were kind of used to these. These are basically like moments from last year, but you only get one shot at them each. So if you fail this moment right here, you get to move on to the next one. It doesn't cancel you out, but you don't get the perks or the squad upgrades for winning that moment. If you do lose one of these red ones, one of these mini Showdowns, you do get canceled out of the whole entire run. So if you lose here or if you lose here, and if there's some bigger ones like the divisional ones, there's probably like 3 mini Showdowns before you get to the end. So those will make you cancel your run as soon as you lose. But these ones you get to go on, you just won't get the upgrades. So the starter one is worth doing. Probably do all of them, get some XP as well, and kind of get a feel for how they go. After that, the first inning one, it's a little bit tough. There's a lot of missions here. And it costs 500 stubs. 500 is not too bad. 1,000 is not too bad. But as you can see, we're sitting under 10K stubs right now. So, you know, it's not automatic for a lot of people that they have the stubs to do this. So I would make sure that, you know, you're comfortable and ready to focus, because it does require some focus, especially in these very last ones. But we'll talk about how these work in a little bit as well. And then, of course, we have these divisional ones. If you complete this entire divisional Showdown, you get 5 AL East Team Affinities. So whatever, if you're doing AL East, whatever division you're doing, you get 5 Team Affinity vouchers that you can split across any different team in Team Affinity. So I'll show you that as well. And each of them are worth 4. So basically by doing just one of these Showdowns, you can get 20 program stars for 1 Team Affinity. So you'll put in 1 voucher, that'll get you 4, another, until you do all 5 of your vouchers. So it'll get you 20 for 1 team if that's how you want to play it. If you're going to do multiple Showdowns, then obviously it only takes 50 program stars to get the diamond from that Team Affinity. If you're doing a collection or something, then you only need 2. But you're also going to have some left over if you don't plan on doing anything but Showdown. You'll only need to get to 50. So then you can split it across a different team. So that's kind of the purpose of the way they did those vouchers. So let's get into the nitty gritty of what Showdown is and how you actually play. So the first thing is that you're going to go in, and let's do this right now. We'll start the NL East just for fun. You go in, your entry fee is 1,000 stubs for this one. Some of them are free, some of them are 500. I don't know how they're going to be in the future, but that's what we've got right now. So you go hit draft. And before you do that, actually, you can kind of look at the upgrades. You can't see what the missions are just yet, but you can see how many missions there are, what kind of mini Showdowns there are, and the rewards that you get for each mission. So then you can go in, you can start your draft. And in terms of a draft meta, let's talk about it right now since we're here. At the very end, your main Showdown is actually going to be only hitting. So there's no pitching involved in the final Showdown, which is the one that's really tough. The ones that lead up to those final Showdowns are the ones that, you know, you can kind of mail in, and they're just like moments. Some of them are like get a strikeout, get a hit or 2, get an extra base hit in 3 innings or something like that. Not too bad. And a lot of those are on rookie and veteran. These ones that you get to the end, it's an all-star version, and it's going to give you a certain amount of outs to get a certain number of runs. And if you skip all the way to the end, you have to get like 15 runs or 16 runs within 20 outs, which is not impossible. I've done it on the fly a couple times, and I know some people have been grinding it out. It's not impossible, but it is a little bit tougher. So that's the one you want to focus your draft towards. So in that version, since there's only hitting, you can play position players out of position. You can have, say, Conforto playing catcher if you have 4 outfielders. So with your draft, you're going to focus on who you want to put in that lineup. Pete Alonso looks like a beast. Again, it doesn't matter. Like if you're playing BR, you might want to take a diamond at shortstop because you want them to play good defense as well. Doesn't matter here. So if Pete Alonso is the guy you're most comfortable with, that's the guy you're going to want to draft. Now we get a starting pitcher and a relief pitcher here. I would not go with them for goals. Sometimes you get stuck with rounds that are all pitchers. Then go with a relief pitcher if you can. In this one, I'm going to go with Ozuna. I feel comfortable with him batting. Right here, you got a pitcher round, so I'm going to go with the relief pitcher. There's only one here. So we'll go with the relief pitcher because there are a couple moments where you have to strike out some guys, and usually that comes at the end of the game, so that's when I would go with those guys. This one's a little bit more personal. I kind of like Markakis' swing, so I'm going to go with him. And a lot of times in this mode, you're just trying to string hits together, so contact is not a bad option. I know a lot of times in BR, we're just looking for power, but contact is not a bad option in this mode. Even if you have trash bronze hitters, by the way, just pick them up. Pick up the best hitter that you can find. Don't worry about trying to see if maybe you're really comfortable with a Felix Hernandez. Don't worry about it. Get a bad bronze hitter because they will fill out the lineup at the end. So as you can see, there's only 5 guys in my lineup plus the pitcher. That means we kind of already filled out the outfield, and then we took some bronzes and some other guys that didn't fit in there. And when you get to your team, we'll show you when you can manage your squad. They'll be sitting there. You'll still have them available. Right now, they're probably in the bench, but there are probably some guys that will even be hidden from you after you draft the rest of your team. And when you upgrade your players after doing moments, they will be there. You have to press X on a player to find them in the binder the way you would do in your regular squad. Now, perks are kind of interesting too, because they give you a lot of ones that probably will never come into play for you. Again, you're trying to draft your perks for your final showdown, not for the ones in between. So there are going to be some pitching ones. You never want to take the pitching ones. And there are some that don't come into play too often. Like if it says with 2 outs, you rarely have 2 outs in the final showdown. So it's not that big of a deal. I wouldn't draft those if I don't have to. Or something right here that says 7th inning or later, that doesn't really come into play in that final showdown. Slight contact boost while losing. This is one of the most important ones because you're literally always losing in that final showdown. So you always have a slight contact boost. This is probably one of the best ones. And some of these that have like particular counts, depending on the way you play, a lot of times they don't come into play as well. But there are some that are like 0-0, 1-1, 2-2 counts. That one's pretty good. And there's a lot that are like inside pitches and outside pitches. Those are pretty useful too, as long as they don't have a qualifier saying like it has to be while you're, with runners on base or something like that. Those are still good and they're still useful, but they're not the best ones. So in general, I want to take the ones that I'm going to use the most often. Whether it's a contact or exit velocity boost, the one that's going to come up the most is the one that I'm going to take. So again, this one is going to be the one that comes up most often. Heart attack, always going to want to take. And then you get a bronze one as well. Outfielders, increased pitch velocity, contact boost, slight contact boost. Again, this one is only with 2 outs, so I probably won't take it. Pitches down the middle already have pretty good contact ratings, but there's nothing better than this one right now, so this is the one I'm going to take. And then make sure when you get into here immediately, make sure that you equip the perks and jump in there, and you'll have to do this every time you upgrade your perks. If you do all the moments and you get to the end, you might have like 8 or 9 of these perks in there, so make sure you have the 3 best ones that you can get. And by the way, don't just upgrade a perk because it's a higher tier. Like I said, the ones that come up most often are the ones you want to use. So sometimes you might get a slight contact boost while losing versus a diamond perk that only applies with 2 outs. I would definitely go with heart attack over the one that applies with 2 outs. So that's kind of the way I think about those perks. You can forfeit a run if you had a bad draft or something. You can forfeit it, but immediately make sure you go to manage squad, set the lineup the way that you want. In order to beat the final showdown, you do have to go through the lineup about 3 times at least. So you do want to make sure that you're solid up and down the lineup. You want to make sure that you have 9 hitters that you can use confidently. Forget about the defense. Defense won't matter whatsoever. But contact hitters are pretty good right now. So even if they are just 60 contact or something like that and not an automatic out, you're probably fine. Right now I only feel like I'm about 5 deep. Even Kingery's not good, so I'm only about 4 deep. I have had a couple drafts where immediately I could go 7 deep, and that can be enough. It was enough for me to get a couple of these team affinities done, but you do want to try to make sure you get 9 deep. So if you can play maybe the first 3 moments or so, that usually helps a lot because that'll give you a couple silver cards. Actually, let's look at that now. You get a silver card for beating this one and a bronze perk, a silver card, but this is a pitcher, and then a batter, and then an NL East Gold Live Series player. So if you can get through this mini showdown, you probably will have a full lineup and you'll be good to go for the final showdown. Of course, you can continue to upgrade your guys. You get more golds, even diamonds over here. So if you go all the way through, you're going to have a much better shot. But as long as you're 9 deep with guys that are not automatic outs, that's all you really need if you're good enough at the game. So all you have to do to skip ahead is to press the options button whenever you're ready, and it'll ask you if you want to skip to the final showdown. You can press OK, and we'll do that in a second here. But if you do these, not only do you get upgrades for your team, you also get final showdown runs. So you see that little red box right below the difficulty there? It says 1 final showdown run, and they show up in most of these. Some of these are 1, some of these at the end I think are 2 as well. So basically you see that score at the bottom left there, and I'm going to move my camera just slightly so you can see it. Final showdown, 20 outs remaining, 0 to 15. As you accumulate these runs, it'll start to say 1 to 15, 2 to 15, 3 to 15, 4 to 15, and keep going up the more that you win these moments. And then when you get to the end in this final showdown, instead of being 0 to 15, it's going to be whatever you earned. So you might start out at 7 to 15 if you do a lot of these moments. And, you obviously have to get half the runs, which is really, really big with the limited amount of outs that you have. If you complete every single one of these moments on the way to your final showdown, then you actually start 10 to 15. So all you need to do is get 5 runs. It is very possible. I do think everybody is capable of grinding through this at some point if you're able to build up your team. And I think everyone's capable of getting a team affinity or 2 based off of this, but it does take maybe a couple hours if you're going to go all the way through it. It maybe takes 20 minutes. I haven't really tracked how long it takes, to be honest, but that's kind of the way I felt kind of going back and forth between the clock when I did this. I've done a full run before and I've done it immediately. So it does take a much different amount of time. You don't want to spend hundreds of hours playing Showdown to grind out your team for team affinities, but everyone's capable of doing it. So if you really, really have your eye on a team affinity and don't want to do March to October, this is a quicker way of doing it, but March to October is good too. Just make sure if you do forfeit these runs, by the way, that you just keep an eye out for the forfeit, that you will lose your stubs, or your re-entry will be the same amount of stubs that you paid already. So you could end up paying 2,000 stubs. If you have an average or bad draft, I would recommend just playing out a few of these, unless you really, really don't care about your stubs. And before I go into this final showdown, I do want to look in here because there we go. We got Jesus Aguilar, who's going to be a better hitter than some of these commons in the lineup. Again, out of position does not matter. So if I have people in here that are better than the guys that are in the lineups already, then I'm going to make sure that I use them. For guys that are not very good, for instance, Enciarte versus Marisnik. Marisnik's got a little bit more power, which at some points more important, but in Showdown, I feel like contact plays a little bit better. So I am going to go with Ender Enciarte over someone like Marisnik. Of course, like someone like Alonso, 68 contact is plenty fine. 103 power is going to play. So it's not like I'm comparing those kind of players, but when you're looking at guys with like the 60s and 40s, that's when I kind of make that differentiation. Then also make sure you go in and see if there's anybody out of position down here. Like this Nick Williams might be a good card for some people. Just make sure that there's nobody back here that you'd like to have either in your lineup or on your bench. And by the way, when you do go in, even though there's a pitcher spot, you can pinch hit for your pitcher immediately. So when you get to the pitcher spot in the lineup, you can pinch hit for him in the final showdown without having to pitch, obviously. So make sure you are 9 deep and not just 8 deep. This lineup is not very good, but we're going to give it a shot. We're going to do a little bit of a demonstration here. I don't know how well this team is going to play, but we're going to skip all the way to the end. We are going to face DeGrom and see what we can do. Okay, so I kind of messed up the recording right here, but at least you'll get a chance to see the gameplay now. The recording that I have on the screen is not what I'm saying right now. That's why I had to voice over it again. As you can see, we used the lineup that we drafted, right? So we had the Eden, Alonso, Markakis, Ozuna, Culberson, Cooper, Aguilar, and Ciarte. About 5 of those guys were people that we didn't have in the original lineup. So make sure you look at your bench and you bring those guys in to make sure that you have the best possible lineup immediately after your draft. And then take a look at the score, right? We have 11 to 15, 17 outs remaining. So obviously we are killing the baseball with this team. And I just wanted to make sure that you know that we're not just using some other team, using some camera tricks or whatnot. One of the important things for Showdown is to make sure that you're not having base running errors. You cannot be running yourself out at home or at third. There's no reason to be aggressive because every run needs to score, right? You have to get all the way around to 15 runs in that one quote unquote inning. So it doesn't matter if you push across an extra run. It just just doesn't do anything for you. So if you do want to stay out of a double play, that's okay, but don't be aggressive on sack flies or, trying to take an extra base anywhere. Quick note about the PCI. This is altitudes with no outer rings, no inner rings. So I just feel like it's low profile. You kind of try to line up the ball directly with the lines that you have there. And it also doesn't hide the baseball the way that sometimes the big circles or diamonds can do, because those can be kind of big on some of the difficulties. And when it's a little bit smaller, you're not really going to block anything. It's not really going to interfere with your eyes. And now this is one of the most important parts about Showdown, the pitcher confidence, because as you go through, the better you're doing, the less confidence he has, the more easy it is to hit, at least to get rewarded for good swings. Sometimes you will have low confidence with your pitcher and it's hard for them to locate, so they start throwing stuff around the zone. And maybe you were aggressive in the zone before, and now it's hard for you to actually get good contact because you're swinging at stuff on the edges. Just make sure that you're looking for stuff down the middle. You will get rewarded a ton at this point. But that's also a good note for when you are maybe 10 outs remaining, you've only scored a handful of runs, and you're like, can I actually do this? Don't lose confidence in yourself, because just an extra couple runs here and there, if you already put up like 3, 4, 5, his confidence is definitely not going to be maxed out. So going forward to the last 10 outs, it'll be much easier for you to get rewarded and have good swings. So make sure that you just kind of, stay on it, stay confident, because when your opponent's pitcher's confidence is low, that's when it's a little bit easier to hit. And to finish out Showdown, sometimes when you have 15 runs, when you're already tied, it is worth kind of bunting guys over. If you've already scored 14, 15 runs, then obviously you're hitting pretty decent that day. But as long as you have more than 3 outs remaining, I would probably bunt a guy over from second base. In this situation here, we had Pete Alonso, so I just wanted to swing away with him. It didn't work out for Alonso, but I had plenty of outs to work with. If you have about 4 outs remaining, I would probably bunt him over to third. They do bring the infield in, so you usually can't bunt him in from third base unless you got a ton of speed. But bunt him over to third, get a sac fly, line drive somewhere, and you'll be good to go. So I elected not to bunt in this one. Just wanted to swing away and see what would happen. We do end up walking off with a home run from Charlie Culberson, and we end up with 5 vouchers of 4 program stars each for the Team Affinity. And that's how simple it is. Right there, it took me about, 10-15 minutes to get that one done. And we didn't have to do any extra work. We grinded right on through, had fun with it too. I think the mode itself is really, really enjoyable, so I'm having a good time with it. One of the best ways for me to enjoy grinding as well. And again, not everybody can do all of this immediately. Depends on how good you are. It's definitely worth a shot, no matter how good you are. A good way to practice as well. But if you are able to kind of grind out some Team Affinities, again, I will have that video out for you guys in the next couple days. I want to make sure everybody can grind their teams the way they want to. There are some thin positions, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing the video, so that you don't kind of get stuck like taking a shortstop in an XP path, whereas like you could have taken a catcher because it might not come up in another path. So I want to make sure everybody has all the opportunities. But if you guys like this video, please drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff for MLB 20, a lot of content, a lot of gameplay tips as always, and some more fun stuff along the way. March to October for the White Sox coming up soon as well. Make sure to follow me on Twitch as well. All the links will be in the description. And I also have a list of community ideas, so if you would like to see a specific video, just let me know in the comments, and I'll try to get to it if I think it's valuable for many, many people. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys soon.